Dandadan is so out of pocket. So I'm still in my JJK review arc, so there will be, continuous videos from that, but I just had to jump onto the Dandadan train for a little bit because it's one of the only anime that I will be keeping up with week by week this season. And when I say this show is bizarre, I truly mean bizarre. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, and enjoy this breakdown of the first episode. It was supposed to be the first 2 episodes, but I covered so much of the first one in my script, I was just like, F it, I'm gonna give y'all the whole taste test and leave episode 2 for next week.
Subscribe to Pulsar.
Started out Ramen, man, with the Gigi when that shit didn't work, talk to pop about the chick. All of them talking my bad ass, still ain't listen, was living, but taught me.
We start out with this scene of one of the main characters talking to her clown of a first boyfriend. This dude is a broke delinquent, a broke thug, a broke goon, a broke creep. He is the very embodiment of every possible negative that brokenness has to offer. Like, you know how we talk about Toji being broke? Toji's smooth dude broke. He has the positives of the broke nigga aura. This clown, this bozo, this goblin is the epitome of the negative emotions, the negative vibes, the negative energies. Everything that you think a broke dude is, it's even worse. Bro talking about some, I'll take you out if you're paying. But only like, if you're paying. I'll take you somewhere nice, like a love hotel. Like, come on now, you freaky ass boy. You are a naughty little boy, ain't ya? And using your alleged girlfriend's money to do it too? Bro out here with double hoop earrings and a jagged ass hairline with no depth or curls. Like, my dog, how do you get a buzz cut with mismatched front settings and eyebrows thicker than your sideburns? Gonna walk behind her while tugging on that weak ass belt buckle. Bro, that ain't even designer. Get it off my screen. I just know he's not packing anything, cause a dog like me would have made it jump and wave at her from underneath the pants while standing dead in front of her with my arms crossed like I'm All Might or something. I don't need to walk in a circle around her like a praying hyena and whisper in her ear with no stank ass breath like he did. But anyways, she obviously is annoyed by him and drops her bag before immediately swinging on him with the nastiest of left roundhouse kicks. Had the blur on screen so crazy the freeze frame got him shook with his mouth wide open. I gotta deduct some freak points from his score though, because a real freak would have taken that moment to peep the gold mine that she was flashing underneath that skirt. We would have ate the hit. They probably white, maybe horizontal, powder blue and white stripe because she has the clean tomboy aesthetic. Why am I even thinking about this? Anyways, he manages to block right before she connects with his head, and when she tries to punch, he grabs her fist and booms her in the stomach with a mean kick, and she goes sprawling out on the ground. He gets to calling her trash and useless cause she's broke, then breaks up with her and wanders back into the school. She fires back calling him a squid and an octopus, and I'm not gonna lie y'all, that was lame as hell for real. On a side note, why is he hitting the Doflamingo ass walk back to the building? Like, bro, you're not him. Now we get a fast forward to her classroom, and let's pause for a second. Let's take a time out. Because how is there a whole fashionista friend and a Gyaruk nonconformist as her 2 main friends, bro? Either this whole thing happened during lunch or their teachers don't teach them shit, because the fashionista has the makeup all on the desk with the concealer, the lipstick that she's barely wearing, and then 10 other brushes and creams and 2 separate pouches in front of her while she holds the mirror the size of her face and puts on her fake lashes. Don't get me started on the other friend, cause usually they be looking fine, in anime at least, but she has that not at all in her bag. Girl had the unbuttoned top button, loose bow tie, bleached hair, telephone keychain earring combo with face paint galore, looking like a tiki mask from Hawaii or a voodoo mask from Princess and the Frog. Like, bro, ew! But they start roasting her, cause why was she even with that bum to begin with? And I'm not gonna lie, they were right. What did she even think? But she explains herself as she's mid-tears. He reminded her of Ren Takakura. Now keep that in mind. Like, remember that name because it gets wicked a bit later. So she makes her little declaration, and then we get a scene switch as she starts slinking through the hall with that same weak-ass walk as her delinquent ex-boyfriend. But I gotta give her the benefit of the doubt because she had that Doflamingo swagger walking from the front angle. She ends up seeing a boy getting bullied in his room and sits down with him while staring at the fodder level 1 classmates. And off rip, none of them wanted to smoke. Like, they put a magnet in the next paper ball with the intent to hurt bro and everything, but as soon as they saw her nonchalantly gazing at them before making little small talk with the weird kid in the back of the class, they switched up real quick, putting their stuff away and shutting the hell up. She then gets up and goes back to walking with her cool little gangster walk, and nerd boy pulls up on her at the stairwell. Bro's so nervous he's staring out the window at straight white light with glasses on. Bro gripping his glasses like an 8-year-old running into the kitchen to drink some juice after playing around outside. But y'all don't know nothing about that now, do you, youngins? That back in my day, when we used to play outside all the time, every day. Now y'all just sit on your computers. I mean, I do it too, but that's beside the point. She's annoyed, obviously, and he keeps chatting about how she must have talked to him because she's into aliens and stuff, but she was not picking up what he was putting down. She's letting him know that it was a one-off thing and she doesn't want to be his friend or anything. But Buddy keeps pushing her, showing her mad alien articles and explaining things that I could barely understand for real. Bro had the confidence to approach her, but still couldn't even look at her. Bro said he's not risking catching a case, got the full arm extend with the magazine, head facing directly behind him at a literally physically impossible angle, and a backward lean with it. Homie is playing zone coverage on this one, did not want to press at all. She flags him off and doubles down, saying she's still not going for it. Bro keeps spamming and begging for her approval, but she turns away from him and gets on her phone. Like, damn, bro's getting no love at all. He tries 2 more times running around her to show her the pages. She finally gets fed up and shouts at him, telling him she doesn't believe in that stuff and blah, 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 before we see something break inside of him and he's just absolutely depressed. He drops the magazine and she pauses for a second, starts feeling bad, and goes to pick up the book and give it back to him before telling him she doesn't believe in that stuff, but she does believe in ghosts and spirits because her grandma's a medium. And when I tell you this boy turned into a whole life jack-o'-lantern with this twisted smile, that would be an understatement. Bro's head starts bobbing with the giggles like apples in the water at the state fair. It straight looks like bro is rendering in real time because of how janky this animation is, and she gets hot at this boy, hitting a full sumo grappling pose mid-sentence. Bro obviously feels pressed, and then he has to explain how it's more reasonable to believe in aliens than ghosts, and I'm not gonna lie, he low-key had a point there. Her friends are on the staircase and see them going at it while chuckling to themselves. Then we get to the juicy part where she dares him to go to this haunted tunnel, and if he sees anything, then he has to be her gopher. And he says the same thing about her going to a building where aliens allegedly hang out. We then get a time skip to the night where they're both passing through the areas they dared each other to walk through with their phone flashlights on while on the phone talking shit to each other. And on a side note, look at this flashlight angle and illumination. When the phone has the full brightness torch mode on, this is what I'm expecting, but I never get it in real life. Meanwhile, I'm seeing the crispest illumination of all time in a 2D animated show. Life is literally so cheeks, bro. So she's surging through with a strong ass light and literally misses a whole humanoid figure standing alone amongst the broken debris. But okay, sure. We cut over to Lil Bro and he's shook standing in front of an abandoned tunnel with a warning sign that says stay the fuck away. I mean, I don't know that it said that, but you know, red kanji with a sign with war down areas around it usually should scream something like that at least, right? While they both walk around on the phone, the girl MC starts talking about this energy channeling thing that her grandma taught her and told her to do at school. And she used to have to do it on the way to school and from school. But when the boys started making fun of her, and more specifically the boys she liked, she began to stop doing it and complain to her grandma. But she admits that she loved her grandma very much, and I'll go ahead and show you this frame right here because we need to put a pause on it. I'll be the first one to say before seeing her face in any future episodes, I need to know if she needs a grandfather, because even on the walk home with no facial shot, grandma looks like she got motion, and I am definitely here for it. I need that. I desire that. They keep walking while she talks about how much she loved her grandma, and we get a shot of this absolute idiot of a high school boy flashing his flashlight at the side of the tunnel wall, where it seems to me at least you know, with my eyeballs, to be bloodied footprints walking on the wall. Bro just glosses over it with them big ass, bifocal ass, goggly glasses when it seemed like too much of a key clue to ignore. To me, at least. I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me otherwise in the comments. Bro then looks at the ground in front of him and sees the footprints that lead past him and finally shows some level of concern. Bro looks behind him, but obviously nobody's there. So he goes to look back in front and puts the flashlight on an old lady who says the most diabolically freaky line I've ever heard in anime ever. Her eyes turned on like some light bulbs and they had to autofocus before she spoke too, smacking her 10,000-year-old lips mid-line talking about some, "I'll let you suckle my tits if you let me gobble your dong." And to be honest with y'all, bro had my same reaction. I would have been out of there. Freak out, running for him and all. But on second thought, when she started smacking them lips together and I heard that toothless know how to train your dragon, I might have paused for a second. Cause girls get rizzed up daily, but the bros, we gotta take our 2 compliments a year and protect them like a Charmander trying to keep its tail flame from going out in the rain so it doesn't die. A proposition like she suggested warrants a certain level of, consideration, shall we say. It's really a 2-for-1 special if I'm being honest. But on second thought, she looks like a old vacuum cleaner bag that is filled to the brim with dust, so any sucking that is done is probably would have ended up leading to heavy coughing and hacking and more of a sanding sensation than a meaty massage, if you catch my drift. But anyways, the girl hears him panicking and tells him not to run away. But he had already started putting on the beats. So she said, if you do start running away, do not get caught because she will put a curse on you. But as we know, most book reading weird kids at the back of the classroom tend to be the more unathletic types, so he wouldn't be able to outrun me, you know, a 6'4", 210-pound gorgeous black king, much less an apparition that can run on literal walls. The distance to the exit stretches and it starts looking like a domain expansion because all we see is red as she starts putting on the burners. She starts running over the top of him and grips his Bambi built ass up. We then see the phone cut red on the other end as the girl panics trying to figure out what's going on. And then it's her turn. Yes, you guessed it. I thought the panels beside her were windows letting in moonlight, but they were actually light fixtures that had power in this abandoned building somehow. They all start cutting off one by one until there are none left, drawing her attention down to them. You know the 3 Musketeers? The 3 Stooges? Well, these were the 3 Gooners. She is understandably shook and says, "You know what? I'll go this way," and sprints back in the other direction. But then we get a 6-frame slideshow of them running down on Shorty and literally tearing her clothes off. Like, bro, y'all couldn't wait? You couldn't take her on a dinner date first, or ask her out, or give her an OF invite? You had to straight grips the bad cheeks, huh, bruv? Strong desire to retain the bunda by any means necessary, yeah? Then the last animated panel that fades out has bro in the back putting straight palm to face? Like, bro, have you no shame? Had me making that one little baby face in total disgust when I first saw this. Like, at least Ghost Grandma gave bro a deal worth considering before she ran down on him for the dong. Y'all said, back find shit first, ask questions later, huh? Nasty, evil, deranged thugs, I tell ya. All 3 of them. Then we get a calm little time skip to her waking up on their spaceship in a chair where she's strapped down and they're getting ready to tell her their plan. She wants to know where her clothes are, obviously, because she's a minor in front of 3 alien grown men dressed up as Bank of America accountants. The one says, "Yes, we handled them nicely and placed them over there," while looking off to the side, and when the camera pans, bro, what the actual fuck are they cooking? Freak asses tore the clothes off and called it being handled carefully. Like, bro, are you actually slow? Advanced ass civilization with no concept of restraint? I would hate to see what they consider being rough. The freaky alien dudes then explain that their race is entirely made up of men that use cloning technology to continue their breed and race, but captured her to evolve their kind and utilize her banana organs. Then, last bro hits the meanest, and I do preface and stress this, meanest lean back and Meat showing of all time. Like, what kind of freaky posture is this? Bro, Meat so big he had to lean back to counterbalance the weight. Meat looking like a satellite pole, same size as the upper half of his body, and the same way she was sweating is the same way I did. Because what do you mean you're putting that thing inside of me? She starts to panic just like I would've. Then bro slaps his hand on her face to put her down, and they start using some sort of freaky jutsu to change her brainwaves and arouse her. We get a trippy view from her perspective of them as she continues to resist, and then the lead one that spoke first says something like, "Oh, you're resisting. You must have a strong will. But I'm gonna get to those cheeks anyways," and manually spreads her legs before we get this gruesome shot of him preparing to do the most disgusting thing I have ever, and I do mean ever, seen. Bro's meat capsule spreads and we see a spear tip at the end, and bro, I was clenching my banana organs just watching this. Good God almighty. Then just in time, her phone starts ringing and one of them goes to answer saying, "Somebody's trying to contact you at this most inopportune time." Like bro, this is not mutual freaky time. This is the perfect time for somebody to call and interrupt. I don't want to see this. Then, just as he picks up the phone, a size 9 shoe with an overgrown foot gives him a high five to the face. The phone hits the ground, and then we see the boy and his ghost grandma possessed body spawn out of it in the most disturbing way possible, like it's a horror film. Then, while crawling backwards, the grandma slides under one alien and rips his dong clean off. Like, bro, do you know how uncomfortable the little boy must have been? Somebody else controls your body to eat alien meat when you don't want alien meat in your mouth? Rip that banana clean off and then sent bro flying into the wall. Ledoux reveals that it's him getting possessed again moments later just for the grandma to say, "Let me gobble all your dongs." Then one of the aliens protests while hitting another zesty lean before talking about how they don't like aggressive humans and rips his own suit off in order to attack bro with his true form. The attacks miss and grandma gets close before taking a mouthful of dong and pile driving him into the ground. And as Lil Bro and the grandma hybrid get ready to take on the last one, the final one clutches up and emits some sort of pulse from his hand to throw them into the wall. Bro then does as all MCs do and tries to talk no jutsu himself into a power-up of sorts and begins to explain how he doesn't care what the alien does to him, but he needs to let the girl go because she was the only person to notice him or stand up for him. He spoke about how as a kid, he used to always call out to the aliens, but they never heeded his summons. Then the girl tells him to kick the last one's ass, but the last alien wasn't having none of that. Bro said, "Nuh-uh," and fired off a second blast, which made bro rethink all his decisions, talking about some, "Sorry, I don't think I can save you after all." And she's sick, saying he didn't even try. The alien turns his attention to her again and attempts to arouse her once more, but actually ends up forcing up memories of her grandma channeling chi. She's apprehensive to the idea in her memories and yells at her grandma saying that she hated her before realizing that she didn't hate her grandma, but instead the people that made fun of her grandma for her teachings and profession. She then thinks about the chi release and manages to force it out of herself and breaks the bonds during a cool animation. The boy asks her why she didn't do it earlier as the alien tries to figure out what's going on, and she simply tells him she had no idea how to. Then she locks in and decides to put the beats on the last alien. She does the same weak kick from earlier on her ex-boyfriend, but uses that extra power that she just found out was within her to break the alien's wrist and really make things shake. The alien goes flying and sends the spaceship that was masquerading as the moon into a complete haywire state. She looks for the boy, but then sees him on the ceiling as the grandma had retaken over his body yet again and jumped down, took a bite into her arm. She frees him temporarily using her chi energy, and the grandma spirit tells her that it doesn't matter because she has his dong. And if she wants him to get it back, she's gonna have to come to the tunnel that she sent him to in order to retrieve it. Whole time, bro is tweaking and twitching on the ground, hitting a 2D full sprint while laying in the rubble. We see the spaceship fly around more and more before crash landing, and the two MCs get out and take a moment to breathe. The girl knows she has to channel her chi energy through him to prevent the takeover, but they also need to go to her house to get her clothes before they go retrieve his dong. He offers his to her temporarily because it was his fault that she got put in the position, and she simply tells him to shut up and ask for help. He reluctantly does and still insists on her wearing his clothes even afterwards so he wouldn't feel weird, which I can respect. He then says a line that she remembered from her crush Ren Takakura, and finally she asks him his name, and the answer blew her mind.
I'm Ken Takakura.
We start out the second episode with Momo nicknaming Ken Takakura as Okarun because he likes the occult, and she doesn't like that he has the same name as her celebrity crush. They end up going to her house because Okarun looks absolutely beat to hell, and she wants them well dressed for the trip to rescue his balls. When they arrive at the house, she tells him that her fine grandma doesn't let boys over, so he has to be careful. They attempt to enter, and Okarun immediately catches fire, and to prevent him from looking like barbecue chicken, Momo has to throw him into a nearby ditch to put him out. When he gets out of the water, we see the drippiest switch up for an MC hairstyle in the game. Bro got blessed with an afro and a fade. Woo-wee! We find out that he caught fire because Turbo Granny has extreme amounts of her spiritual residue within his body, and the barrier talisman placed at the entryway to the shrine was used to ward off evil spirits and terminate them if they attempted to enter. They then end up going upstairs and realizing Momo's grandma isn't home, and we get to look at Momo's bedroom, which it was surprisingly much girlier than I was expecting, considering her tomboyish personality and love for the cool beauty type of guys with strong protecting instincts. The room was screaming flower girl and pretty princess from what I saw. She ends up changing and then throws him some clothes to change into, but before he switches, she suggests that they check to see what happened to his family jewels, since Turbo Granny says that she took them. He realizes he never even checked to see if they were actually gone, and realizes that there absolutely have nothing there. Momo had the same thought process as me, because if a girl told me that her reproductive organs got snatched, then I would want to see what it looks like without it being there. Not even on a freaky level, but just because I wouldn't be able to imagine a living, breathing girl with the same build as a Barbie dress-up doll underneath the skirt. Okarun has a heartfelt conversation with Momo, explaining that he is the reason that she is in the mess that she's been roped into, and why he just really wanted to have a friend because he never experienced it before. So when she showed him attention, he jumped at the opportunity. Momo tries to cheer him up and then attempts to get him to respond after the fact, and he grows silent. And then the funniest part about this show may not even be the hilarious problems that come up each episode, but instead the genuine enthusiasm behind the voice actors portraying the emotions of the characters. Because after a long moment of silence, Okarun stands up and says, "Bitch," which to me was completely uncalled for. Dude was a peak bag fumbler. He did not appreciate her calling out his faults, and they get into a short wrestling match before hearing an ominous doorbell ring. Momo explains that her grandma had 2 doorbells installed, and one was for regular people while the other was for evil spirits. Which, first of all, why the hell would there be a doorbell for evil spirits, as if they're polite enough to ring it? But on second thought, they actually did this time, so I guess I'm the clown and grandma really knew what she was cooking up. Momo realizes that she needed to put the talisman back up in order to cook the evil spirit, and so they slip out through a side door and try to make it to the main gate. They see clouds overhead, and then what seems to be a domain expansion hit the field around them, as the entire area around the shrine was surrounded by 4 stone walls. Okarun and Momo both start getting nosebleeds as they attempt to figure out how they can remedy their situation, but neither of them knows what to do. Momo looks back at the ceiling, and there's a sumo wrestler spirit dangling from the top, breathing with the literal Black Death fog coming from its mouth. Then it has the audacity to open its mouth one more time and say,
"I found you. You didn't keep your promise."
If I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea why anybody would make a promise with this guy. But it doesn't matter because he came to collect, as he immediately sent a fist flying and put a crater in the stone wall directly in front of the gate. Momo and Okarun both look at the crater and the stone wall and look at each other before screaming and running away. The sumo spirit jumps down from the ceiling and swipes at them. Bro didn't even connect the hit, but the residual wind hit them with the area of effect damage and sent them flying into a wall nearby in a shrine building. They almost got squad wiped again, but nearly evade him as he punches the wall. They attempt to sort out where he came from or whether or not he's a ghost, but Okarun believed that he was an alien, which ultimately meant that he was sent by the aliens that they had defeated the previous night in order to obtain the banana organs. Okarun spawns an idea and realizes that he may be able to fight the alien sumo wrestler if Momo can control his mind and allow him to think clearly, while Turbo Granny takes over the rest of his body, which will grant him her power. Momo obviously is concerned about the plan because she doesn't fully understand her own powers, but he pleads with her to attempt it anyways, and so she does. As they go through the plan, she manages to seal off his mind from the rest of his body at the very last second when another attack would have sent them flying. We see the most dripped out version of Okarun humanly possible come flying out of the dust while clenching Momo by the waist. Like, bro, my boy is clean! His voice gets deeper and raspier, and the sheer aura of his realness becomes visible as he taps into his inner nonchalant dreadhead. He was low-key rizzing Momo at the beginning, and she begs him to stop talking that way just because of that simple fact. He tells her that he'll be back in a moment, and then goes to face off against the alien sumo wrestler. The alien sumo wrestler attempts to clap him unconscious, but instead has 5 of its fingers removed, talking about how he accidentally dodged. Bro is trying to be way too smooth with the transformation. Just as he prepares to deal with another attack, he begins to cough up blood and gets promptly stomped on. Momo recognizes that he's in danger and pulls him away from the attack that followed and runs over to him to understand what happened. He explains that the human body wasn't meant to move as fast as the spiritual energy was allowing him to, and his body felt like it was literally being torn apart, which to me was just a really fancy way of saying he wasn't that guy for real. Because if a baddie was helping me control my superpowers, then you would have to leave me out there to die. Because I'm not about to come back to her as a loser when I'm trying to look cool. Bro had the voice, the drip, the aura, and the nonchalant demeanor necessary to get the job done and couldn't carry out the task. Absolute tragedy. They realize that he is a sumo wrestler and concoct a plan to have him submit to losing a match with his hands touching the floor. Okarun attempts to get into his nonchalant Super Saiyan form once more in order to finish the job and pay back the aura debt that he had just incurred with his last attempt. He manages to destroy one leg and Momo pulls a sumo to the floor, which leads to one of the hands beginning to disappear. But the sumo wrestler spawns 2 legs out of the top of his body and stands up to prevent himself from losing. Okarun tells Momo to run, but she's too late and the spirit throws her into the stone wall near the opening gate with enough force to put a crater in the wall. Then it doubles down and booms her for a second time, deepening the crater. Just when we think she's cooked for the game, she wakes up and prevents Okarun's complete transformation back into Turbo Granny's ball-gobbling slave and tells Okarun to stand back because it's her turn. The sumo's hand touched the ground and it cheated to stay alive, and that's something she can't stand. Cheaters. She then attempts to goad the alien sumo wrestler into punching her again, and it happily obliges, and the more she provokes it, it turns into a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure scene with a million punches being thrown in a matter of seconds. Oh my goodness! There is a short pause, and we realize that it was all part of her plan. She went big brain, because the sumo had punched her so many times that the crater was now deep enough to move her outside of the barrier, which would allow her to save Okarun by pulling him in close and resetting the talisman again to burn the alien sumo into oblivion. And I'll be the first person to tell you, the only thing hotter than the spirit alien sumo wrestling thing's breath was the flames that it ended up catching in its final moments. They open their eyes and everything has returned back to normal. Momo jokes about how good his hair looks, with even more wavy texture as opposed to the bowl cut that he sported when he was getting cooked by literally everybody in the first episode, and then we see her become lightheaded and pass out from exhaustion. We are left with a cliffhanger as Okarun has no way to contain Turbo Granny's power anymore, and he succumbs to her spiritual energy, which transforms him as soon as Momo stops channeling her chi. The episode starts with a lady giving a psychic reading to a young idol. She says that he's 27 with a wife and a kid, but he refused both, saying that he was 20 and single, which obviously presents a conflict because most people are going to believe him as he is the famous idol. And being so young looking, there would be no way that he was pushing 30 while also being married with a kid. She even goes as far as to say that he loves curry as his favorite food, and he says that he prefers ramen. As she's leaving the set, the director and producer of the show are having a sidebar conversation talking about how wrong she clearly is, but they decide that they're gonna keep the episode running anyways because very few people end up watching such a niche channel in the area where it would be airing on. We get a scene switch that shows her riding back in a taxi while being asked if she was the one that gave readings, and the taxi driver basically wanted a psychic reading himself. She tells him to stop the car and let her out as she literally opens the door while the car is in motion, and he feels as if he offended her, which makes him apologize, but it wasn't even that being the reason. She says then that she predicts he will die if he goes any further, which obviously means that he's going to turn his car right around and go back from where he came. We then jump to see Okarun completely transformed into his Turbo Granny slave form as he runs his fingers across Momo's body and dangles her in the air laughing. Then the same old lady that was giving the psychic readings uses her abilities to save Momo and send the Okarun Turbo Granny hybrid into the nearby rice field waters. As Turbo Granny attempts to recover, we hear the old lady talking about her leaving her granddaughter brought home another scumbag of a boyfriend, only to see that it wasn't even a human being this time. As the camera pans back over to her, we see and realize that my prayers have been answered by none other than the gorgeous lady of the shrine herself, Momo's grandmother. And I just have to play this sequence back again, because nothing about this outfit makes any inkling of sense, but because she's so absolutely bad, she gets a pass. No skirt or pants, just straight youthful legs underneath a button-up cardigan with the varsity jacket over the top and the fit blowing in the wind no less. We get a flash of cleavage and a baseball bat dangling over the shoulder as she has her hair pulled up into a mountaintop point, and she has glasses? I usually hate cigarettes, but the way she got it dangling from her mouth got me feeling some sort of way, you know what I'm saying? All I can say is, I knew I was right after episode 1. Her grandma had to be an absolute baddie, and in fact, she is. If I were to explain to you just how absolutely beside myself I am with glee, I think my sheer freak energy would be enough to summon the balls of Okarun from the clutches of Turbo Granny, who is currently miles and miles away in that one tunnel cave thing. I am bricked! But anyways, to get back on topic, Turbo Granny attempts to attack Baddie Grandma's blind spot and gets caught within a barrier and starts barbecuing herself. Then we get this cool walk down animation as the baddest of all grandmas, yes, badder than Tsunade because after all, this is all natural. Tsunade was using chakra enhancements. Begins to explain exactly how cooked Turbo Granny is. Then standing 3 inches from each other's faces, she gives one of the coldest stare downs possible, despite Turbo Granny saying that she would literally eat her alive once she escaped. Momo's grandmother proceeds to beat the absolute brakes off of Turbo Granny using her baseball bat, and then pulls out the pencil tip from her baseball bat to draw a second barrier circle before preparing to kill her. Turbo Granny attempts to use Okarun's life as a bargaining chip, but it fails when Momo's grandmother essentially shrugs her shoulders and says, "I don't give a fuck," then wipes away one barrier to light Turbo Granny ablaze. We see Momo wake up from her sleep, and her biggest concern is Okarun. She scrambles to the staircase and ends up asking her grandmother about it. Once again, let me pause this frame right here and let us bask in the absolute glorious beauty of her grandmother. Okay, that's enough. For now, at least. Her grandma calls her out for being in a haunted place, and Momo doesn't contest. Momo then panics because her grandmother is being uncooperative, and her grandmother went so far as to remind her that Momo said that she doesn't believe in those things, and that her grandma was a fake. And Momo appears combative at first, then bows her head and puts her forehead on the floor as she apologizes because she was wrong. Her grandmother glances at her before telling her to check the main shrine room to find Okarun. At first, she's scared that Okarun was killed by her grandmother and sprints outside while having memories of him flash through her mind. She says, "I'm sorry, Okarun," before opening the sliding doors and seeing Okarun eating a rice ball looking completely unbothered. Okarun is obviously overjoyed to see her, but she immediately slams the door on his face. She gives the most tsundere response and began kicking at the door saying, "You're still alive?" And Okarun says, "Yes, I'm sorry it disappointed you." She takes a moment to reflect and honestly lets out a sigh of relief before her grandma tells her that the shrine room that he's sitting in is protected to prevent him from turning into the Turbo Granny slave until he steps outside. Batty Grandma tells a story of Turbo Granny being called once upon a time 1 kilometer Grandma in ancient days and explains that she fused with a bound spirit that was already in the tunnel and became so strong that even she couldn't bring herself to enter. She tells Momo to forget about Okarun, but Momo follows the thought process of the actor Ken Takakura that she was infatuated with and says that she intends to help. Momo's grandma explains how the barriers work and how she can't by herself just get rid of Turbo Granny, and then they come up with a plan to get Turbo Granny to play a game of tag to lure her into a trap where Momo's grandma would actually be able to assist. Momo and Ken had a tender moment right afterwards, kinda. Then we get a cutscene and we see Batty Granny was correct about her reading of the famous idol that everybody thought she was wrong about. He's blasted across every single news channel that you could possibly think of, talking about how he was in fact 27 and he did have a significant other and he did have a child, and the only thing that wasn't covered was about him loving curry. The next morning, Momo and her grandma observe Okarun as he has to use the bathroom and conversate about Momo's powers before finally letting him take a dump in the bathroom. Okarun experiences one of the most embarrassing moments known to man as he has to sit on the toilet with the door open while his only friend in the world, that's also a girl, has to watch him. And then the most attractive grandmother to grace God's green earth leans against the wall on the outside, listening to his literal human waste plop into the toilet bowl. Me personally, I would literally die of embarrassment in that moment because there's just too much going on there. We then get an absolutely devious pull-up from Turbo Granny as we see both Momo's grandma and Okarun catch nosebleeds and sitting unresponsive. Turbo Granny tells her that she doesn't have any more time, and if she doesn't pull up tonight, then she's gonna terrorize the streets like she's Prime King Von, using Okarun's body as the medium for her powers. After she dissipates, Momo's granny realizes that she's bleeding, and after seeing the talisman on the doorway had been very badly damaged, she demands Momo give her the rundown on what just happened. They suit up in spirit and demon-proof drip, and as they head out, Momo gets a hug from behind from her grandma, which had me feeling some sort of way, and when her grandma hit her with the
Don't die on me,
I was feeling especially jealous because as much as I would hate to have to fight Turbo Granny, moments like that are to die for. Like, I know it's family, but look at how up close and personal this is. I don't know. If you're a girl watching this video, I know you wish a stunningly gorgeous grandmother would hug you from behind like that too. Don't play. After the final scene switch, when they get on the train, Momo reaffirms her conviction and assures Okarun that Turbo Granny will pay for trying to hurt the people that matter the most to her. They bicker about who has to go in first before deciding to go in together. Momo jokes about them being able to deal with her in the tunnel because they were able to deal with the Flatbush monster pretty smoothly, and Turbo Granny, quote, just is a little old lady. She pans her flashlight and sees a ginormous head covering the path ahead, and Okarun panics because he sees the exact same thing behind them. She starts to get active and inches towards them while activating her gnarly domain expansion as the tunnel glows red. Momo tries to use metal baseball bats and Turbo Granny's eyes turn into mouths, and she literally eats that shit. Momo releases Okarun's powers and he attempts to blitz Turbo Granny, but just like Black Friday deals, he's sold! Bro turned right back into his regular human form, and they immediately panic because Momo can't see the curse at all in him anymore. Turbo Granny reveals that she gave him back his balls in exchange for taking back her powers so he couldn't use them against her. Which, you know, is great because we don't have to worry about securing his dong. But unfortunately, his and Ayase's entire lives are in danger. No! Turbo Granny closes in and gets ready to devour them, but Momo remembers what her smoke show grandma told her: taunt Turbo Granny to get her to lose her edge and agree to a race. Turbo Granny takes the bait and Momo tells her that it'll be a game of tag and her and Okarun will get a 10-minute head start, which should have set off alarm bells in Turbo Granny's head because what kind of race does not have a finish line? Literally None. But anyways, they start the race and then Turbo Granny starts counting like how 7-year-olds did back in the park back in the day. Talk about some 1, 2, skip a few, 1,000. Like bro, huh? She literally reaches 10 minutes before they escape the tunnel and spawned hands that were camping in the bricks and on the floor and on the walls to wrap Momo up. Then she tells the complaining Okarun, nobody said how to count. Old Bat probably forgot how to count in order properly and figured that by saying numbers and guessing, it would be enough. That Alzheimer's was probably beating her ass with her being in the tunnel that long. She then attempts to grab up Okarun and we get the most predictably freaky scene that we've seen since Momo got kidnapped by the aliens. We sit and watch as Okarun suckles her teats with a mouthful of dirtbag fossilized titty in his chompers he was gripping on for dear life as she swung him around and demanded he let go. Her powers are limited because she came into contact with him and his spirit-proof drip, courtesy of Momo's granny, made it so that she has to go for a full body possession to remove the clothes and then deal with Momo. When she attempts to attack Momo, she falls to the ground because Momo finally found her true form and was able to contain her the same way she did her essence when it was running rampant in Okarun. At the very last second, when Turbo Granny attempted to kick her dead in her chest, the sealing job was complete and Okarun got his body back. We then see some sort of extended snakehead come out of Okarun as Turbo Granny demands that they free her. But it doesn't work like that because Momo has some plans for her. The bound spirit that she originally combined with was seen as a giant crab and blasts through the wall in an attempt to get Turbo Granny back. And then the real chase ensues. The crab starts running down on them and Momo gets Okarun his powers back and allows him to have them run away faster, but he can't turn because Momo is on his back and he runs off of a mountain road and spins his legs really fast to slow the descent temporarily. He ends up catching himself on a building and catches Momo to break her fall before they both hit the ground. They thought they had bought time, but out of nowhere, the crab spirit ended up coming down on them like a meteor that cooked the dinosaurs. They run all around people, and I was wondering why nobody reacted to the giant seafood fest sliding down the street until I found out that the average person can't see the paranormal. They just saw Okarun giving Momo a piggyback ride at darn near light speed and shrugged it off like it was just a regular occurrence, bro. Momo went big brain and tells Okarun to run into the bathhouse as she was hoping the crab wouldn't be able to get them, and then the hot water would also end up tightening up its muscles and preventing it from moving. She breaks a pipe of scalding hot water above its head and successfully stops it from doing so. As they leave the building, they run into empty streets, but that quickly changes as Turbo Granny reveals that she summoned the assistance of other spirits in the area that possess nearby people to chase them down. They end up surrounded by spirits and the crab monster, but Okarun goes Super Saiyan Emo one last time in order to get them to escape, and alongside Momo's spirit control hands, they make a break for it. They run up the crab monster's arm and Okarun launches them airborne before Momo swings them around the cranes to get them as close to the train as possible before Okarun ran out of energy to go emo. They crash on the ground and Momo realizes that she let go of Turbo Granny, who promptly booms both of them with kicks that sent them sliding across the concrete. She stances up in front of the spirit army looking tough, then complains about how they tricked her when she literally planned on playing dirty herself too? I don't really get it. She merges with the crab again, and just when she's about to cook them, Momo grabs the passing train and lands them on it. It was a smart play because the train goes 120 kilometers per hour, and she, as Turbo Granny, was known as the 100 kilometer per hour grandma. But after the train slightly brakes, she jumps on top of it and got ready for the end game. Momo holds her back with her spirit hands with just enough time for them to land into Kamado City, where her grandma was waiting to cook Turbo Granny for the game. We watch Turbo Granny catch fire along with the crab sphere before seeing the souls of the girls being freed from her clutches as well. When they make it to the next station, Okarun finally wakes up only to be told that the match was over and that they were safe. Granny Psycho takes them back to the tunnel later and reveals that the tunnel was a place where high school girls were violated, chopped up, and disposed of. She reveals that mediums had been attempting to understand why Turbo Granny was always spotted near locations of deceased girls, but Granny Psycho believed that she wanted to lead the girls into the afterlife properly. Nevertheless, something had to be done about Turbo Granny because she was attacking the living, which can't be allowed. We then get a scene switch, and ironically enough, we see them eating a crazy amount of crab meat, and Okarun, understandably so, doesn't have an appetite for that because of the recent happenings. Granny Psycho tells him he's too bitchy to be a boy and wonders if he actually got his meat back. She asks him to show her that he got it back, and she stretched the crab meat out before putting it in her mouth, and I knew it was time for business. But for me personally, with my confidence in my meat, I would have spread my legs and let her check for herself, because I certainly would love to see her see what I'm working with. Because just as much as she would want some of me, I need some of her. Momo was busy munching on crab meat when her grandma chases down Okarun, but we end up getting a scene switch before Okarun ends up getting caught, and we just see him thanking her as well as Momo for their help before he says his goodbyes. As he walks away, they both wonder what kind of goodbye it actually was going to be, and Momo makes the decision easy by calling out to Okarun and saying she'll see him tomorrow. So obviously this episode kicks off after they finally defeated Turbo Granny and they have to get ready for their next day at school, which is honestly insane to me. You could never tell me to fight for my life and carry a girl on my back for miles and miles just to end up eating a seafood boil and heading right back to school 6 hours later. I need at least a 3-day weekend worth of time to get my brain back right for the foolishness of algebra class. Okarun stands outside of the school building adjusting his face, trying to decide how he's gonna say hi to Momo, but he doesn't know if she even wants to talk to him. He lays eyes on her and realizes that she's looking in his direction, but he doesn't know for sure that she's staring at him, and he doesn't want to take a chance because he's a little scaredy cat. As he begins to approach her, he looks at her, then looks straight past her, and walks right by because he is completely shook. Me personally, if Fine Shit was standing within arm's reach and I did not know if she actually wanted to talk to me, I would be pretty scared too. But I'm gonna say something, because worst case scenario, you wave at her and say hey to her and she's not meaning to share any conversation with you and she just flat out ignores you. That would be pretty annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, after we just sat there last night, I carried you on my back, literally at the speed of sound, for miles upon miles, and repeatedly got pummeled while running away from demonic spirits and a giant crab and an old lady whose literal name had Turbo in it. Girl, you about to say hi to me. Luckily, Momo intentionally bumped into him to make it less scary of a meeting and to break the ice so that they could share some conversation on their way to class. As soon as they enter their rooms, Okarun immediately starts getting bullied. One kid knocks him to the floor. The other girl whose desk he landed in front of starts laughing and yelling in his face, and then he gets up to go sit down at his desk and he tries to shake it off and act like everything's okay because he now has a friend in Momo. But as he opens up his book, he gets bombed in the face with a volleyball. The kid that caught it is sitting there looking as if it's just another day for him and didn't even bother apologizing before going right back to playing whatever game it was that involves playing with a volleyball in a classroom. When you consider the fact that Okarun has been dealing with this exact same treatment the entirety of his life, now being a 16-year-old boy in high school, it actually sounds a lot more sickening than it actually was leading on to be. And this is realistically our first time seeing how wicked his classmates were willing to make his day off the rip. We see Momo sitting in her classroom with her friends trying to get her attention and talk to her, but she's in her own head thinking about Ken, and we see Ken thinking about her, and shortly later there's a class change leading into lunch, and we see this corny rom-com anime scene where both of them searching for each other walk out into the hallway, literally separated by a single person, but are unable to see each other as they, walk past, but anime logic, I guess. The funny part is how they both ended up walking into each other's classrooms and asking people about each other, and nobody has an answer for either of them. Then they both go to places where the other one of them enjoys getting food from, only to head to their own usual spot, and then over to benches where they finally gave up their search. Momo thinks that Okarun is hiding, and Okarun thinks that Momo is avoiding him, even though they are literally sitting 10 feet away from one another. They both get up and end up walking directly into each other while looking at the floor and give us the cliche accidental anime kiss, which honestly had me giggling when I first saw it like a little schoolgirl. I can't even lie to you, twin. They both start confessing that they were looking for each other and thought the other one was hiding or avoiding the other, giving themselves a little bit of time to have a makeup moment before Momo's classmates that accidentally saw them kiss create a whole fabricated life of them being lovers. And this didn't go over well with Momo though, because she was gonna have absolutely none of that, and proceeds to start flaming Okarun, who starts flaming her back, and then they both go their own separate ways with a super heated temper. Okarun ends up going to the bathroom and realizes that he does have his Frank back, but he doesn't have the beans to go with it. Bro had the main course, but none of the side dishes, if you get what I'm saying. We see Momo sitting inside of her classroom, getting cooked on by her friends, and the other random girls look like creatures from the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends cast as they try to explain why she's been acting weird and why she's been so distant lately, and attributing it to Ken's appearance as her boyfriend. Okarun throws open the classroom door and tries to get Momo's attention while assembling his missing balls with his hands very non-discreetly, even though nobody else picks up on it, which I just found to be absolutely hilarious. He then tells her that he needs to speak with her. He needs to. And he attempts to squash the beef so that he can get the sidebar conversation to tell her what he's missing, but she's not having any of it. She keeps pandering to her friend group of imaginary creatures from where the wild things are. And let's just take a moment to look at the crowd of friends that she has, which is absolutely egregious. We have the classic obese girl, which is fine. You then have the one girl who looks like she's gonna play the main role as the main character in the Smile 3 movie. Then you have a girl with a long wonky head shaped like a Subway sandwich roll talking about some $5 footlong head ass. And then there's just some base level fodder characters, half of which need to take a brush and some hair cream to their dome. He tells her that he enjoyed talking to her earlier and always has, but apologizes after she continued to press him and says, "I didn't know it embarrassed you this much to be friends with me." And as much as I just roasted on that friend group, I appreciate one of her day ones being real enough to tell her that she went way too far when she was cooking on Okarun, because especially if she claims that they are actually friends, like one joke definitely would have done it for me, especially with a group of ghouls and goblins in the presence of the girl that I like. That's all it would have taken for me. But she's smashing all kinds of red buttons and just letting that whole payload out. She took the word insult and put a switch on it and let that boy Okarun have it. As Okarun ends up scampering out of the building at the end of the day, he bumps into Ira, who was the school's pink-haired heartthrob. She strikes up a conversation, apologizing for bumping into him, and he's smiling and cheesing because obviously this is only the second bad bitch that's ever spoken to him in his life. Well, third if you consider Granny Seiko, but anyways, Momo comes down the staircase and sees this interaction before almost having a heart attack of her own. And honestly, in that moment, she had no right to, because she just pressed the hell out of him and ignored him when he apologized to her and said that he needed to talk to her. Not want, need. But she ends up being a real friend and stands on business behind Okarun as Ira walks past her and talks to one of her friends, talking about how Okarun is lame and how he's going to be thinking about her for the rest of his life and blah blah blah, just because she's pretty and an amazing person, and then he'll never really get to enjoy being around girls like her. Momo turned right around and took a random pan that was conveniently sitting on top of the lockers and dropped it right on that girl's head, which knocked that girl out cold. But low-key, that could have given her some legendary CTE because the placement was perfect and it landed perfectly on her head. If that was any regular cartoon, she would have been squished like plankton at the bottom of SpongeBob's shoe. As Okarun sees the pan land on her head, he starts to feel bad, but it doesn't last long because Momo runs over and grabs his arm, asking him to walk her home to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid like helping that girl out. On their way back home, she decides to finally woman up and accept accountability for what she said to him earlier and apologize for how inappropriate it was, especially with her unloading the whole clip of insults on him just to impress her goofball, big body built ass friends. This reminded Okarun to tell her what he had been wanting to tell her earlier, which was that his meat was back, but his balls were missing. We jump over to Momo's house and see her grandma looking finer than ever, while reprimanding Okarun for not having shown her his meat last night when she told him to. This was the exact thing that she was afraid would have happened, and it was the real reason why she was chasing after him, trying to sneak a peek. And like I said last video, if she had told me to drop my drawers, they would have came flying off, because when it comes to a bad grandma like her, the only answer she would ever hear out of my mouth is, "Yes, ma'am." His excuse for not recognizing that they were missing was because he saw his shaft and forgot about the rest because he was so excited. Granny Seiko decides to have some fun with the situation and tells him that for him to call it a shaft, it would imply that it is massive, but it is in fact a mere pencil-tipped nub, which is crazy, but I wouldn't let that happen to me though. Momo's grandma then uses a system of mirrors to figure out that something has been hiding inside of Okarun the entire time, and then has Momo use her spiritual hands to help her pull the spirit out of him and throw it into her cat doll. After a few swings at Okarun's back, they successfully force it out and throw it into the cat, which then begins sweating profusely and then scampers and skedaddles out of the room. Momo uses her powers to locate it after they lose sight of it and realize it's inside of one of the storage rooms, which they promptly open. After a few seconds, they realize that the spirit inside of the cat is none other than and Turbo Granny. A short conversation was had, and Turbo Granny tries to pull out her ace in the hole, saying that if they get rid of her, they'll never be able to find Okarun's balls. But that doesn't last because she insults Granny Psycho and Momo and tells Okarun to kill them both in order to get his balls back. He transforms out of rage, revealing that the only thing that had been knocked out of his body was her spiritual presence and not her powers, which still reside in him. This left Turbo Granny at their mercy because she is now just a meager cat doll with an attitude. To start out this episode, we see Momo and Okarun attempting to find Okarun's balls while the cat version of Turbo Granny lays on the bench relaxing. She says that she doesn't know exactly where they are, but that they're coated in her energy, which makes them glow, and that should attract spirits because they would want to resurrect themselves in this life using the life force energy contained within them. The search for the balls continued and they came up empty that night, which meant that Okarun would once again be going to sleep without his crown jewels. When going to class the next day, Okarun gets ambushed by some bozo who throws his arm over his shoulder asking if he was going out with Momo. And when Okarun said no, and that guy brought up the fact that she was actually a pretty girl, Okarun faced the reality that he hadn't consciously realized already. Not only had he made his first friend, but she was a girl. And she was actually hot. To me, this was rhetorical because, dude, you've literally seen her stripped to her underwear within the first 48 hours of you guys meeting, and then continuously being in close proximity towards one another, but at the same time, he never really had friends, much less had an opportunity to find a girl cute and get any interaction out of them. So I guess it makes sense. But then again, they just accidentally kissed last episode. So shouldn't his monkey brain neurons have started firing differently then? The pain in the butt classmate then asked Okarun to put him on with Momo because he heard from some uncertain source that she was a bit of a goer. She was a treesh, a bop, a skeezer, a harlot even. Basically, she was down for the action at any time with anybody. And when I tell you Ken wasn't going for it, he was not having any of it. Bro powered up like Goku when Frieza blew up Krillin. He grabs the guy by the collar and got ready to stand on straight business. The guy obviously sees a dorky kid with glasses that always gets bullied, so he doesn't take him serious. Until Okarun started to transform. And while I know most normal people can't see the spirits and energies in the show, I think that coming into physical contact with them awakens something in the regular characters, because this clown immediately changes his tune when Okarun hits that growth spurt. He apologizes and spouts that he doesn't know who started the rumor, but it was not him. So Okarun snaps back into reality and drops him before rushing over to his desk to gather himself. It is at this point that he realizes that Turbo Granny hid inside of his backpack. Her excuse was that Granny Psycho said that she could go out and didn't have to be cooped up in the house since she didn't have powers and couldn't cause mischief anyways. Okarun runs out of the classroom and bumps into Momo, who tries to have a conversation with him before he thinks about the fact that she's actually cute, and he attempts to run off from her in embarrassment. She chases after him, but as y'all know, you should never underestimate a scared teenage boy surging with hormones because he got up out of there. We see Momo in her classroom talking to her friends about him running, and they brief her about the fact that Okarun stood on business and put paws on a boy that was trying to spread rumors about her earlier that morning. Ira pans into frame next, and we see her talking about how pretty she is and how great of a person she is because she graces everybody with her presence. And then things get dark because she starts talking about how she feels like it's her responsibility to get rid of Momo because she saw she had demon rings, which was actually just Momo's spirit hands waving bye-bye at her after dropping a watchman on her head because she was talking trash about Okarun, but whatever. She doesn't know it yet, but the only reason she was able to see it was because she picked up Okarun's left testicle, which was coated in Turbo Granny's life force. But it's just a golden ball in her eyes. We see that she ended up getting the ball when it fell off of the train that Turbo Granny got lit ablaze on and landed right in front of her, granting her supernatural prowess. We then see her friends and they brought her a bag of different spiritual tools designed to help her get rid of demons and spirits. Her friends look at her weirdly, just like I would have if my group leader sent me to gather such things, and she dismisses their concerns, saying that she's the prettiest girl and that's why she was chosen. We jump to the roof and see Okarun and Momo eating lunch with Turbo Granny, who tells them that the person that came into contact with the ball will be able to experience the paranormal and see spirits, but that spirits will also be able to see them, which means that whoever has his ball, aka Ira, is definitely in danger while being in possession of it. We then skip and see Okarun and Momo prepping to search again after school, only for the girl that they needed to see to come to them. Ira tells Momo specifically that she needs to speak with her alone at that, and despite Momo saying that she was busy, it prompted her to listen and send Okarun to hunt alone alongside Turbo Granny. Just as they walk away, Turbo Granny alerts Okarun that Ira was in fact the girl that was in possession of his golden ball. Ira leads Momo to an abandoned warehouse, and just as Momo starts questioning what's going on, Ira's lackeys pounce on Momo and pin her to the floor, only to put a zip tie around her wrist so that she couldn't break free. And I couldn't even lie. Those are the friends you need in your life. True ride or dies that will literally attempt to exorcise a regular girl with spiritual power just off the strength of the fact that you said it. They were quite literally standing on that die part as well, because that almost happened next too. Momo uses her spirit hands to damn near catch a murder charge as she throws those poor girls into a pile of debris, bricks, steel beams, and rusty metal. Bro, they are not getting up after this. She was trying to put them on a t-shirt with Amazon's same-day shipment for real. Ira reveals that she has the golden ball and a crucifix and attempts to shove them against Momo's face, giving a new perspective to the phrase teabagging. And the method, in fact, did not work at all, for obvious reasons. Momo even tried to tell her that it was a different kind of ball, but Ira literally did not care. Okarun sprints into frame and clears up the confusion about the familiar that Ira had seen earlier in the day, and says that it was not a familiar of Momo's, but instead a separate spirit entity altogether that was not actually after Momo. It was after Ira the entire time. And just as fast as he could get those words out of his mouth, she ends up getting snatched up off of Momo's back by that same spirit, which tells her, "Oh Ira, how I've missed you." The spirit thinks that Okarun is trying to take Ira away from her, so she grabs him up and swallows him whole, literally showcasing the most immaculate throat game that I have ever seen in my life. And I've seen a few. It was revealed by the new arrival Turbo Granny that the spirit was an acrobatic silky spirit. Not because she instantly knew, but because she used the internet to search up her characteristics as if she was some sort of Pokemon getting added to a Pokédex entry. We realized that it may have had some deeper connection to Ira because it says that it was waiting for 10 years to see her, and that was the time when Ira had last called her mommy. Ira is still as dumb as a normal high school girl would be in this situation and calls her a monster before playing into her own given characteristics as the chosen one, saying that it is her sworn duty to destroy her. Obviously, guys, this doesn't go over well with the spirit that clearly missed her because it then swallows her whole next. It snatches up Momo, demanding an apology for the previous words, but Momo refuses and tells her to piss off, which leads to her needing to turn on her 99 overall durability as the spirit proceeded to turn her every which way but loose while swinging her in 3 full circles around every wall in the building. This whooping made what Momo did to the 2 girls earlier look like a mild pat on the head and a stern talking to that Thomas got for trying to sneak the Switch in his backpack to bring to school because he didn't want to take his math test on a Tuesday. The spirit then hems up Momo one last time and tells her that while her calling her mommy wouldn't be nearly the same as when Ira said it, she would still be willing to forgive her actions if she did so. Momo refuses and tells her to piss off one last time before she gets swallowed entirely. We find out that the crucifix was actually a lighter at the end because Turbo Granny gets to narrating and explains that because the spirit swallowed some of its own hair, it would serve as the fuel needed to consume herself in flame. We then see her burst into blue flame as our trio gets spit out of her stomach. I'll take a short intermission here and ask you guys to like and subscribe to the channel since you made it this far in the video and enjoyed it enough to go so far. And join the Discord in the description to help build a community of like-minded anime enjoyers and become part of the video creation process. To start the next episode, Okarun and Momo are running from the spirit as it attempts to reclaim Ira from their clutches. The spirit decided to get in the little meat roast as she hits Okarun with a "Give back Ira, you shrimp willy boy," which is an insane roast considering the situation as of late for obvious reasons. The acrobatic silky spirit uses its hair to attack them while also swinging all around the warehouse with extreme precision. And while this looked great and the animation was peak, it worked against her when she threw Okarun and Ira to the floor and attempted to consume Ira once again to make her one with her own flesh forever, but quickly realized that her hair was holding her back and preventing her from advancing on them. The spirit starts tearing apart at the beams in an attempt to break free, and Momo steps in to attempt to hold back the spirit using her spirit hands while yelling at Okarun to lock in and go Super Saiyan Emo so he can punch her. He likes to take this peak moment to open up and tell Momo that he's never thrown a single punch or kick in his life, so he has no idea how to actually hit her really hard. Even against the aliens and the Flatwoods monster, he simply did it off of instinct and doesn't know how to just put his body in motion to get the job done. So you know what he decides to do just in time to save Momo as the acrobatic Silky breaks itself free? He steps in front of her and jumps headfirst flying into the chest of the spirit, which surprisingly sends it crashing into the next warehouse over. We think they defeated her and turn their attention to Ira, who was searched by Turbo Granny in an attempt to recover Okarun's ball. She finds it in her pocket and gives it to Okarun, but has to break some unfortunate news to them as Ira is in fact already dead, which cut their joy short. Momo and Ken hope to be able to resuscitate her, and Momo even goes as far as to tell Turbo Granny to call an ambulance despite her contesting the effectiveness of regular paramedics. Momo massages her heart with her spirit hands, and then Ken breathes air into her lungs, making this the second indirect kiss he's nabbed, despite the unfortunate circumstances. And they look to the side just to realize that the acrobatic Silky was not defeated as it lumbers towards them in its heavily damaged state. It tells them that they can save Ira, but it would require the transfer of its own life force into Ira's body in the same way that one would jumpstart a car battery. They're apprehensive because literally 2 minutes ago the spirit was trying to gobble them all up, but the spirit took it to the extreme and broke its own jaw to the point that it was dangling to prove that it served as no threat. Momo would have to grab both of their life forces with her spiritual arms to serve as jumper cables between their souls in order for it to work, so she jumped up to do it without hesitation. We then get jumped into an unstoppable cutscene of a flashback from a woman that appeared to work as a hostess. She grabs her cash and heads home, where she gets to see her young daughter who was smiling and waiting for her while she was out. We then get a short masterclass tier montage as she plays with the daughter, eats with the daughter, works odds and ends to keep their lifestyle afloat too. We then get this reoccurring red dress that pops up at the beginning of the flashback, and once again, because she bought it for her daughter, who appeared to have a keen interest in ballet. The little girl's dancing all through the living room in the red dress, and I can only assume that there's some connection between this memory specifically and the dress that the acrobatic Silky wears, which is also red. We get a cute scene as they celebrate her birthday, but as she blows out the candles, we see the lovingly bittersweet paradise come to an end, as the next scene is when things get wicked. We see the apartment getting torn apart by two grown men that beat down the mother in the process before we see them grab an envelope of cash that she seemed to have been saving along with her daughter. The mother's struggle didn't seem to matter to either of the men for obvious reasons, and despite her best efforts, they left her knocked on the ground in need of a teammate to grab her reboot card. She comes to after they already started loading into the car, and we see one of the greatest first-person point of view sequences in anime history as she stumbles out of the apartment door and lumbers down the staircase as the vehicle comes into view. She collapses in the street while in pursuit, and we see a delicate scene as the mother dances across the skyline with the nighttime stars as her backdrop with calming music in the background until it's put to rest with the sound of a heavy thud. We next see her standing in what appeared to be a busy intersection where Ira grabs onto her tattered clothes and says, "Mommy?" with a questioning tone before realizing that it wasn't her getting called back to her father who was nearby. We see a separate flashback of Ira and her father watching her mother's body be put away after what appeared to be a funeral service. Her dad tells her to be good so that she can enjoy the next time that she sees her mother when her mother tells her how much she's grown. And to be very real with y'all, scenes like this in anime bring me to near tears almost every time, because it's not even a moment of an important character dying. It's just a regular, semi-relatable moment about things that sadly happen in real life to some degree, with a bunch of pain, but from a child's perspective too. Think the death of Major Hughes in Fullmetal Alchemist for those that have seen.
Mom, how come? Why are they burying Daddy? Who are those people? Why are they burying him? Why?
He's gone, baby.
They can't. I don't like it. Daddy said he had lots of work to do, and if they bury him, he can't do it when he wakes up.
That brought something out of me, man. We get brought back into present day as the spirit of the woman within the acrobatic Silky begins to waste away slowly into the light breeze as Ira wakes up. Momo was wondering what was going to happen to her and why she was falling apart all of a sudden, and Turbo Granny finally decided to lock back in and be serious for once before telling her that, being that the life force of a person is like a battery, when that battery runs out, that person dies as well. But in this case, it was the spirit of the mother. She said that due to the many regrets and happenings of her past life, the spirit would likely end up passing into the void instead of the afterlife. As the final flashback of the mother flashes across the screen, she once again apologizes and wishes she could have been a better mother to her child, and believed that if her daughter had been born into a different family, then she would have been able to live a better life. But just as she begins to dissolve into her final pieces, Ira runs over and hugs her before giving her the words that she so desperately needed.
I love you. I was happy. The happiest in the universe.
Square up with the Gooner Shrimp hybrid. She manages to properly execute her QuickTime event with a down slam on the water, which essentially made the Gooner Shrimp alien be exposed to air, which led to its muscle tissues being cooked within its arms due to the excessive force that it used outside of water this time. We start out seeing Okarun, Momo, Ira, Turbo Granny, and Granny Psycho all eating ramen together, but this piece is rather short-lived. Momo attempts to convince Ira that none of them are demons or evil spirits, and then even apologizes for dropping the washbin on her head after their first interaction when she saw her with Okarun. She asks Ira to apologize for what she said to Okarun, but instead of doing so, Ira says that while she may believe that she is human, the rest of the household absolutely isn't. The reason for her belief in Okarun being one is the fact that he can turn Super Saiyan emo using Turbo Granny's powers, and Granny Psycho because she looked, quote, too young and beautiful, which I honestly couldn't argue, because when I found out that she was Momo's grandmother and not older sister or even mom, boy, I was beside myself. And if y'all have seen my previous Dandadan reviews, appreciating her grandma is definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. If you're new to the channel, it's your boy Cole-sama, aka Sensei Cole. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join the Discord or join the Patreon to help support the content below. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one, because as y'all know, we've got some balls to catch. But anyways, the mild glazing she gives to Granny Psycho obviously goes to her head. So much so that she trolled and agreed with Ira that her own granddaughter was a demon spawn. The disagreement continues, but Ira rushes out shortly after and slides back into the room to tell Okarun that she appreciated the help even though she didn't understand why he bothered to, since, you know, he's not human at all. Okarun, being his usual aloof self, simply says, "That's what I thought you're supposed to do, help people when they need it." This obviously triggers something deep inside of her, because as she's leaving, we get a short blurb of her telling herself that she shouldn't feel that way about him because he isn't human, essentially alluding to the fact that she was really feeling Okarun, my nerdy little king. We see them the next day at school, and Okarun and Momo walk to class before Momo tells him that she'll see him at lunchtime, only to face rejection for the first time, as he says he has to work on a paper after school and he won't be free because he has something he needs to take care of. Momo obviously sees through this and realizes something's off, but she doesn't know what it is just yet. At lunch, she tells her friends that he won't be coming because of schoolwork, and reveals that despite that, she felt like something was off with him, and that led to her ending up leaving the classroom and getting her friends a drink. This proved to be problematic because my boy Okarun ended up getting caught in a bit of a precarious situation. She sees Ira underneath Okarun with about 6 inches in between their faces through a walkway in between the school buildings. I saw this and was immediately as shocked as her, because there's no way Okarun met Shorty, flashed some emo drip, saved the baddie's life, and got laid by her in the same 48 hours.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to...
While at school, no less. There's no way he's that saucy with it. This was one of those moments where your friend that gets no love and always has to settle on the two-man finally bags his first baddie to himself. Like, I'm proud of him, but with these extreme circumstances, there's just no way. Unless, is this method? Do I need to cop some emo drip myself? We get to see the other side of the situation, and I am so glad it wasn't what I thought it was. We see Ira run into Okarun while he was working out behind the school building under the suggestion of Granny Psycho, who gave him the Saitama One Punch Man method of squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and crunches to make his body become better equipped to manage the powers of Turbo Granny within him. Ira says, even though you're a demon, and leans in real close like she wants to kiss him. And obviously this surprised Okarun more than even me, so he quickly shoved her away and asked what exactly she was doing. She hits him with a, this is what you're supposed to do when a girl likes a guy. He naturally asked where the heck she heard that one from because it made no sense. And the response was absolutely so wild. It gave me a new perspective on her. Guys, she found it in some material in her father's study. At this point, I had to respect Okarun for standing on big business because I definitely don't think I would have been able to, in his shoes at the very least. She was the school heartthrob, not the school bop, the school heartthrob. And she realized in about 6 hours that she really liked me, my nerdy tail self, and knew I was good enough of a guy for her to give her first kiss and body to. That is an insane honor. But to mention the fact that he also definitely finds her attractive at the least is also important. But unlike me, he tells her that she should not have been reading those books, and they get into a tussling match because she was locked onto her prey, just like you and I. Yes, you and I are gonna be locked in on all the women in sundresses this summer. Did I mention you and I? He resists because he doesn't really think she knows what she's doing, and he doesn't want her to regret her actions, but she ends up catching the back of his knee, which led to them falling on the ground and being in the position that Momo found them in. We get a continuing segment after Momo drops the drinks because Okarun hears it and turns to see her seeing him on top of Ira, and he immediately tries to clear the air. But we know Momo, and she's going for none of that. She ends up stomping back to the room and spends the rest of the day extremely irritated in front of her friends. We then see Ken literally working out in class, going full gym bro with the ankle weights, grip strengthener, and dumbbell equipped, while behind a textbook that was standing upright in front of his desk to protect him from the teacher's gaze. Bro heard method and immediately locked in. So locked in, they're gonna have to say free him. He says there's no reason for him to be as weak as he is, and he needs to get stronger for the sake of Momo, which I admit is a noble cause. But just as he exclaims why he's going to go so hard, the world around him grows silent and he finds himself wading in ankle-high waters. Judging from their last instance with the Flatwoods monster and Turbo Granny, he assumes that Momo must be in a similar predicament, but when he goes into the hallway, he realizes so is Ira. Momo is at the other wing of the school and tested windows to try and get outside, but entered a hallway when that didn't work. The domain expansion only got worse from here as she saw the Loch Ness Monster, aka Nessie, sliding around the corner through the water. It can sense movement through the water like it's Toph with her extra sensory because she was blind, as an earthbender at that. And that almost got Momo cooked because after a few seconds of surveillance, it released a hyper beam all through the hallway, annihilating the upper part of the wall that she was literally crouching behind to hide. The monster waited for a moment before moving on to the next hall though, which gave her time to breathe. Okarun tried to catch Ira up to speed by telling her that he's been in a similar position before and that they have to defeat the aliens to return to their world. A boxing demon pulls up with gloves, doing its best Muhammad Ali impression, ready to run the fade. But Okarun goes Super Saiyan Emo to grab Ira up and move her to a safe distance away. The boxing monster sidesteps forward just as Okarun prepares to confront him, and he ends up with blurred vision and gets forced directly into the floor and out of his superpowered form. We then see the new iteration of the three Gooners from the first episode. When Ira foolishly tries to save Okarun using her lighter crucifix, she gets sent flying down the hall with a flick of one alien's hand. The aliens reveal that they've come specifically for Okarun and want to kidnap him in order to understand where his powers come from because they are beyond even their advanced technology, which he showcased by traveling through the cell phone to save Momo during their very first encounter. They raise him into the air, and just before they can strip him completely naked to complete the alien freak-off ritual,
What the fuck? No!
we see him freed from their clutches by a pink blur, which turned out to be Ira in fact. She stands rather acrobatically and masks up while flexing her newfound aura in front of the Diddy disciples. She demands that they set Ken free. I'd like to take a short intermission here and ask you guys to like and subscribe to the channel since you liked the video enough to watch this far. And you might as well join the Discord in the description as well to join a community of like-minded anime enjoyers and become part of the video creation process. Now, back to the show. To start off episode 9, we see Okarun scrambling for his clothes in the classroom as Ira attempts to tell him that it will all be okay because she dispersed the aliens, just for one of the freakball aliens and the boxer alien to engage in combat against her. Ira uses her skills to dip and dodge the boxer to blitz the main alien group, but they break out the force push like Anakin Skywalker and send her flying right back to square one. She dodges again and puts the absolute beats on the alien boxer before giving it a devious kick that sent it flying into the ceiling. When she attempts to go after the main alien group, they use the force again and throw her into the wall while holding her in place long enough for the boxer alien to get down and boom her in the stomach to send her into the classroom with Ken. He emerges from the rubble of desks while still having no clothes on, just so he can save her from the aliens, and this was short-lived as well because they put him face down ass up on the ground right beside her using the powers of their, quote, awesome zones. The boxer alien starts booming Okarun in the back of the head in an attempt to give him the most legendary case of CTE. Okarun manages to catch a hit and flexes even more aura and power to try and throw him out of the zone. We then see the camera pan to Momo telling Okarun that none of this would have happened if he wasn't being a cheater. She realizes that the acrobatic Silky's powers are now within Ira and then uses her barrier ability to protect both of them instead of just Okarun. The aliens summon a mantis shrimp alien to replace their boxer alien that got KO'd, and he was ready to get on that timing. Bro was giving Ken and Ira the work. Bro said, y'all can hold the combo, just make sure my fries are in the bag. Momo stepped in to give them a breather, but when Ira tried to attack the mantis shrimp, it hit her with a hidden move like a Glock in a Hawaiian's waistband and sent her to the upper room immediately. Okarun gets on timing to save Ira as it tries to strike her falling body and had the alien whiffing dust while he was butt naked aura farming with a baddie in his arms. He reveals that the alien's moves are slow enough for him to see, and then he locks in with Ira for a choreographed dance that was probably something that had Momo sick to her stomach. They were tag teaming those guys. They end up dropping off the mantis shrimp, and then there was a new domain expansion as the water turns green and almost inverts the world like Shinji from Bleach. And even in the midst of fearful battle, Ira refuses to squander her opportunities, and we see this when Momo has to pry their heads apart because of how much she was gushing over her man that isn't her man, but is her man. We see the Loch Ness Monster alien from before revealed to be Nessie, and when it heard that it came all the way out here just to get a 60% pay cut according to the 3 Gooner aliens, it had enough of the BS. It split one of them in half and then got everybody in a panic. Momo swims off and Okarun is in hot pursuit while Ira still plays the slow pretty girl and gets beamed into the ceiling from below. We realize that it's a shrimp monster from before, but he can't breathe underwater, so he has to swim above water to breathe before going back under in order to make his powerful attacks. Okarun tries to take a chance to slide on him in the moment of weakness, but that didn't work because Turbo Granny can't swim, which means that when he uses her powers, he sinks. Whole time, Momo is still hot from the scene that she saw earlier between Okarun and Ira behind the school building together. Then finally, Ken locks in and gets the opportunity to explain that he doesn't care about other people's viewpoints or perspectives because he only wants Momo, and so he wanted to make sure to clear up any misunderstandings. And you know what? She actually listened. We got to see a proper conflict and conflict resolution between people that care about each other on a realistic timeline for once. I think Dandadan does a good job of getting to the point instead of letting things brew over an entire arc and finally having a different character clear things up with a third-party intervention. Once they have their cutesy lovey-dovey moment, Momo creates a method that lets her propel them using her spirit hands to squeeze Okarun's body like a bar of soap, and they use that to save Ira. They save Ira, and then Momo has to use her powers to eject the water from the girl's lungs. When she comes to, they tell her that she has to strip because clothes would limit the movement in the water, which makes sense. And then they all collectively strip down. Ira was freshly resurrected and wanted to run point guard on their assault, which made no sense considering how she literally died and needed a spirit transfusion the last time she saw everything, but whatever. Underwater, they attempt to fight the aliens while riding on Okarun's back, only to just barely avoid getting a hyper beam attack put right on their domes. Ira gets the drop and tries a falling kick just to end up getting boomed in the stomach and then hit with an extra large combo with no bev to wash down the whooping. She gets sent flying back through the water, and Momo and Ken save her just in time to avoid the mantis shrimp and Gooner alien hybrid. Okarun makes an important thought clear, saying that they can't win in the water and they realize what has to be done in order to ensure victory. They get sent flying again, and then Momo has to square up with the Gooner Shrimp hybrid. She manages to properly execute her quick time event with a down slam on the water, which essentially made the Gooner Shrimp alien be exposed to air, which led to its muscle tissues being cooked within its arms due to the excessive force that it used outside of water this time, and helped contain its destructive power usually. The remainder of the hybrid that could swim then got on Momo's ass immediately, and she used a force field to temporarily save her. I don't know what Okarun and Iroh were doing this whole time, but they picked the perfect time to lock in for the parlay. We see Iroh stop the point blank hyper beam using her hair to strangle the alien, and Ken then had a direct surface to run on and do the alien in the same way that he did the acrobatic Silky the first time. And sure enough, ball game. We see the domain expansion close, and we all know our high school heroes are safely back on the floor of their high school halls. The only problem was, well, they were basically naked and on top of each other in the hallway, and every student that had ever attended the school was in that same hallway. And honestly, this is a wicked position to be in from everybody else's point of view. It's lunch break or something, and the nerd that everybody bullies and the girl that has rumors spread around about her are butt naked in a random wet spot on the floor. Like this is a scene from a rom-com anime that's 12 episodes long with no season 2 during the beach segment. Momo and Okarun do the dash, and we see Iroh spawn out of nowhere running with them in embarrassment. And that concluded the episode. We start off the next episode with them in the nurse's office, wearing tracksuits now, and while this nurse didn't make me go as crazy as Granny Psycho, I know for sure she was supposed to be at least 40. And my guys, she looks delicious for 40.
You some freaky ass nigga!
Did Bro just describe a 40-plus-year-old nurse the same way that he describes hot wings?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Boy, if you don't...
We see a teacher open the door without asking, and she takes her bedroom whip and goes to town on him. She was going so crazy on the old man, but I know he had to be feeling bliss. Had me wishing that old man was my shadow clone, because once she got done with him, I would have needed to know exactly what it felt like. The group starts to stress over how cooked their social lives are, and Okarun actually spells out that the aliens need to study them because they lack the ability to sample and study yokai themselves, so a sample of the powers that you can actually make contact with is actually a worthwhile collectible for experiments. Momo accepted the situation and was prepared to take the fall for the group's social death, but then the two bestie lackey characters from before make their appearance again. I'm starting to think that Momo's grandma might have had contact with Lady Tsunade, because that is the only healer that could have had these two back in class before the week was over, with the way Momo had them cooked the last time they got screen time. They raised a fuss at Okarun and Momo and steal Iroh back to her class. This means that Okarun finally gets the ISO again and takes his time to clarify that he has been working out in private to get stronger for Momo, and how he ended up on top of Iroh when Momo had seen them. He gets flustered and Momo starts to cheese a little bit, and then things get really sweet, and we think they'll get to ride their relationship train off into the sunset. We see Iroh cooking in class and they all pander and fall in line with her words, and we even see her hiding a smile deviously because she knows how crazy she just cooked with her gift of gab and power to persuade. But then her two bestie lackeys start to flame Momo in front of everybody as if they didn't just try to illegally exorcise her 2 episodes ago. And when I tell you these clowns ate that garbage up, bro, you would have thought it was a baddie when they see a seafood boil, dude. They were ready to get on Momo immediately. But finally deciding to be accountable, unlike most women,
You need to leave!
she admits that Momo wasn't the problem, and even dropped the bombshell truth that she was the one spreading the rumor about Momo being freaky. She left the room dejectedly and goes outside to sulk. Momo runs into her, and when Iroh tries to deny what happened, Momo calls her bluff because she already knew. We then see the boxing monster from the school pop up looking absolutely fried, and he falls to the ground in tears before we hear the backstory of his life. He came on the mission to get money from the 3 Gooners to help his sick child who seems to be constantly in need of blood transfusions. They end up back at Momo's place and nurse him back to health with bandages and food before Granny Psycho reveals that the white substance on him that he had when he first appeared was his blood, and it also smelled suspiciously like milk. This led to the discovery that they essentially have milk for blood, making the solution for the alien extremely simple. Next thing you know, we see him getting sent home with a good old cow in tow to save his son. The main problem remaining is the fact that we have the trio of goofballs with no clothes, and that leads to Momo scheming for them to collectively ask her grandma for them. But that doesn't exactly work because she sees through it and tells Momo to answer the door using an impression that she used to do a while ago in full character if she really wants to get hers that bad. This made quite a sight when she finally committed and opened the door to see her childhood friend Gigi, who she also had a crush on at the beginning of the show, right there, front and center. Honestly, Okarun has been through enough, bro. Alien after alien, yokai after yokai, bully after bully. Now he has to go toe-to-toe with the stylish, dripped-out, earring-wearing, charismatic first love interest? Bro, come on! I'd like to take a short intermission here and ask you guys to like and subscribe to the channel since you liked the video enough to watch this far. And you might as well join the Discord in the description as well to join a community of like-minded anime enjoyers and become part of the video creation process. Now, back to the show. We get the Gigi backstory and find out that he moved away at a young age and ended up in a house in the woods with his parents, but ended up constantly seeing an entity that was literally so powerful that it could sicken his parents, that led to exorcists and spiritual leaders being summoned to do away with it. Bro, 3 out of the 5 of them that came died. It got that bad, and they said, you know what? Go to Granny Psycho and let her do something about it.
Subscribe to Kosama.
Started out riding Batman with the Gigi when that shit didn't work, talk to pop about the chick. All of them talking my badass, still ain't listen, was living, but taught me.
We open up this episode with Gigi having the opportunity to introduce himself to the class and Aura Farm, and somehow it worked. On the girls at least. Meanwhile, the guys were sick because number 1, he was annoying, and number 2, he was good looking, which meant that was more comp for them now. Gigi's the type of guy you don't want in your friend group, bro. Dude has the look, but not the mental drip to put with it. Out here shooting the most egregious shot selection that would put a washed Paul George to shame. Bro told the girl in the first row that he would erase himself from the plane of existence if she didn't slide him her number.
Really, nigga?
And you know what? That shit worked! He greened! This is like having a female friend that tells you that guys always send unsolicited meat pics, and you wonder what clowns really think that's Riz. Then you come to the conclusion that out of the 20 times they've shot that shot, at least 1 or 2 girls had to respond favorably for them to keep gambling like that. Bro, she is those girls! Bro slid down the aisle like he was prime Michael Jackson, and you could tell from the boys' expressions that they were sick, but somehow the girls were mesmerized. That's not even the worst part. Bro said that Momo and him knew each other because they were lovers? Like, bro, are you sick in the head, you clown? Some people were in an uproar on Twitter about him, and I thought, how bad can he actually be? Only for him to take my expectations and violently dunk them in a trash can. Luckily, one of Momo's besties ran interference and shut that mess down expeditiously. Meanwhile, Okarun was going through it and drawing in his notebook, trying to keep himself sane. But you know our GOAT and our young king wasn't about to let this minor setback damage his ability to get the job done. So he still goes to work out behind the school building during lunch. Momo pops around the corner and he immediately hits the cancel action button and takes a dive for the bushes like he was a missile or something. Momo says she came to watch him work out while eating lunch and even agreed to feed him while he worked out. Pretty girl, feeding me lunch while I work out? Sounds like peak to me. But you know, Okarun couldn't have that, and Gigi pops around the corner to chop it up with Momo and share lunch. Okarun pulls a me and decides that it's more trouble than it's worth and elects to fade from Momo's existence so that he's not in the way. But he can't do that either, because we see a biology atomical model come flying around the building at full race pace before Okarun tries to run away from it. The biology doll then outruns Okarun and throws him to the concrete before continuing towards Momo and Gigi. Gigi immediately attempts to do the dash like a cupcake and doubles back to tackle Momo out of the way when he realized that she wasn't also running. She sees something golden that looked like it could have been Okarun's missing ball, and so she grabs onto the biology doll, but honestly she can't even do anything because of Gigi and ends up getting dragged along for the ride. Okarun takes off his shoes and socks and preps himself to go Super Saiyan emo before catching up to them with ease. Him and Momo cook up a scheme to save Momo and Gigi, who literally get launched into the air before catching them again and continuing their chase. They end up finding the biology doll in a junkyard where he explained that he was searching for his love, and he explained that life changed when he met her, which properly flipped a switch in Okarun's head when it came to Momo. This is one of those moments where I had to give credit where credit is due, because they really went out of their way to accentuate and just show just how much this anatomical doll loved his lady. And they have their cute little scene right there at the top of the junk pile. And then you see Okarun really come to the realization that he loves Ayase. And that, honestly, to me, really made this episode peak. We then see them beg Granny Psycho to keep the girl biology doll so that way the boy can always visit her at night, and she agrees to do it. We find out that he wasn't powered by Okarun's other ball, but instead it was a Christmas ornament attached to his no-no square. Okarun later agreed to assist Momo when it came to dealing with Gigi's dilemma. Meanwhile, he was getting assaulted by the cat version of Turbo Granny in the process. We see the boy biology doll almost get cooked when trying to see his girl one night, and simultaneously we see Gigi tweaking in his room because the guy that was in his original home in the woods was continuing to pester him. Bro couldn't even get an ounce of sleep even if he wanted to. We see them taking a train the next morning over to Gigi's spot in order to investigate, and the usual shenanigans were afoot. Gigi attempting to riz Momo but failing after that egregious showing when they faced the boy biology doll last time, and then Ken obviously trying to break it up and using his occult knowledge to pull away Gigi's attention from Momo. It surprisingly works, and Gigi ends up bonding with Okarun about the topic. They managed to make it to Gigi's place after climbing a mountain town for what seemed like forever, and nothing appeared to be concerning with the house being spotless and no signs of aliens or spirits, which was unusual. Momo then scampers off to the hot spring while Ken and Gigi goof around for a bit. This is short-lived because she runs into yet another jumping from 4 old weirdos in the hot spring, dude. Back at the crib, Gigi and Okarun peep that there's an extra room that you can see from the outside of the house, but from the inside of the house, there's nothing there. So they end up heading inside, and Gigi takes a literal sledgehammer to the wall in order to find out what lay behind it. Needless to say, something is going to tell me that they'll wish they hadn't looked, because the entire room is covered in what appeared to be paper talismans, from the floor to the walls to the ceiling. Season 2 kicks off right around the corner, and it'll be interesting to see how things actually pan out for our lovely group of heroes, and I look forward to seeing what more this series has to offer. If you enjoyed this video and made it to the end, do me a favor and like the video, subscribe, and watch another video on the channel. And without any further ado, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Your theme is peace.